I think at least a few people can relate to me whenever I say that the Kenobi show wasn't what I was expecting. And to cut it short, half the show felt like a Disney Channel sitcom, and the other half felt like an actual Star Wars movie made by Lucasfilm. It felt like dipping Wagyu beef into cold ketchup. And from Disney, I would expect something with the same quality as the sequels. I thought that those movies actually had really good scripting and amazing CGI. After all, this is still Star Wars. And for the respect of the people that made the show and Lucasfilm, I don't want to spend any more time ripping into the show. Instead, I want to talk about what I think went wrong. To see what really went wrong, we of course have to start at the beginning. The original show was actually supposed to be a movie. It was the original story for the Kenobi show. From what I've heard, it would have cleared up most of the problems and quote-unquote mistakes of the story that we have now. Now, unfortunately, after Disney stepped in and made it into a show, the original writer quit because he said he couldn't complete his vision for the movie on a 6-episode show. And that's when they had to hire a new writer to basically remake the story into a TV show, and that's when they picked Joby Harold. Now, from the interviews I've listened to and the research I've done on him, he doesn't seem to be a very high-quality writer. But still, he was hired to rewrite the story. And this is pretty much when everything starts to change. Everything is being rushed by Disney, and the story is being transformed by Joby. With things being rushed and Joby as the writer, I think this is where everything got bad. In my opinion, one of the biggest issues with the show is the character plots. One of the things I've noticed when comparing well-written stories to the storylines in the Kenobi show is the completion of all plots and relationships. I'll give an example from The Last Jedi and the Kenobi show. In The Last Jedi, we see Rose's sister Paige Tico die. Now, it's important to note that we have absolutely no connection to her character when she dies. But still, we understand what's happening and see it actually connect to the main story with Rose. Then we can take a look at possibly one of the worst character death scenes in Star Wars. That would be the death of Wade. Pretty much all the weight and focus on this scene is put into Wade's death. It's such a bizarre and awkward scene that I actually think they put more emotion and focus on his death than any other scene in the whole show. The relationship between the girl we see Wade with and his character is so horribly written that for the audience, it's so confusing and weird that you just have to laugh at how silly it is. I'll just give one more example of how bad the writing for this scene is. When Wade and the sad girl come to save the day, they pretty much just destroy the stormtroopers, and by doing so, it's establishing how powerful these ships are. Then comes another horrible scene in which Reva is standing 5 feet from one of these ships, blocking the shots like it wasn't just exploding stormtroopers 2 seconds earlier. This is a good example of lazy writing. They made the ships super powerful so Obi-Wan, Leia, and Tala could escape, and then they made the ships really bad to add intensity to the scene of them escaping. With the writing out of the way, I want to talk about the casting. First thing I want to get past real quick is a pretty controversial topic, that being Moses Ingram as Reva. I think she's a good actress. She's done well in other things I've seen her in, like The Queen's Gambit. However, her acting in Kenobi just isn't great. It's okay, but I think the real issue lies with the character she plays. And once again, the writing. Her character, I think, plays way too big of a part. It feels more like her show than Obi-Wan's. And we as the audience never really got to build a connection to her. And that's my guess as to why so many fans hated her. Now, of course, this isn't the actress's fault, it's the writing, but I do think the casting for the show isn't great. It feels like they picked out actors from Disney Channel. And what's weird is they also have amazing actors as well, like Rupert Friend, Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen, and pretty much all the actors that came back to play their roles again. I think the casting issue is probably a result of Disney rushing the production to get the show out as fast as possible. Which then brings us to the production. One of the biggest problems with the show is the CGI and special effects. To cut it short, they're really bad. It makes everything look like a fan film, especially the lightsabers. This is mainly just blamed on the show's low budget, but I think it's due to the rushing by Disney. I've said this before that a big difference between George Lucas and other filmmakers is his perfection. He needed everything to be just the way he envisioned it to be. And nowadays I think people are more simple and maybe even lazy. I don't think perfection is something that's crucial to filmmaking at all. I also don't think that there's an exact formula to it, but I think art and vision can only be obtained by perfection. And I definitely think that good entertainment and filmmaking is a mix of both art and formulas, in some way or another. So personally, that's why I think it turned out like a fan film or a really low budget show, and of course that's just my opinion. I think a big part of why the show was able to get to this point was Deborah Chow. Like Joby Harold, I really don't think she was the best person to be put in charge of a project as big as this. Not only is she very inexperienced as a director, but also the show has some of the worst cinematography from Star Wars, and very novice level directing, like shaking the camera during every intense scene, or the god-awful scene where Tala taps the stormtrooper, completely stunning him. Seriously, the scene felt like it was from Michael Scott's Threat Level Midnight. I think unlike a lot of people, she actually had vision for the show. Something that you see quote-unquote bad directors do is have a very messy and unsure idea of what they're doing. Something I saw a lot in the making of the Kenobi show was that she had a vision. However, I think the rushing from Disney really screwed with it. That's one of the reasons George Lucas didn't make Star Wars with the studio, because he knew he couldn't create his vision of Star Wars with the studio constantly changing and rushing things. I think that's exactly what happened with Deborah Chow. I hate to be the person to hate on Disney, after all, without them we wouldn't be getting any Star Wars at all. But I think the main problem was with Disney. I think you can see this happening in Marvel as well with She-Hulk. I think if Disney would give Lucasfilm and Marvel more creative control, and especially time, then we would see more quality in their content. And that was today's video. By the way, this video took me quite a long time to make, so if you could just take a few seconds to drop a like and subscribe, it would be greatly appreciated. Also, if you want to see more content from me, feel free to check out my Instagram. It's at DarthSnow66. With that being said, I really hope you all have a wonderful day, and as always, may the Force be with you all.